Good afternoon. In this video, I would like to talk about some advanced topic in the cost structure of a firm. So in module 3, you are learning a lot about various aspects of the production and the cost side of the firm's production decisions. And both of them are important because the only way a firm can maximize their profit, which is their main objective, is to try to minimize their cost of production and at the same time produce as much as possible. So one could think about profit maximization as a combination of two strategies working together: production maximization and cost minimization. And sometimes it's a challenging task. So what managers are basically assigned for or responsible for is to figure out various ways, various organizational ways, various technical ways through which both of these objectives could be satisfied at the same time. So in the advanced topic of cost discussion, we are going to look at some of those strategies that managers regularly adopt under alternative business scenarios. So I will walk you through the handout that is already uploaded in module 3. So let me share with you the notes and I will sort of walk you through the discussion that is being included in this handout. So remember, the objective of this discussion that we are going to have right now is to figure out some of the ways in which cost minimization is achieved. But we are not only interested about cost minimization, we are also interested about production maximization. So let us look at some of the ways through which this dual objective can be achieved. The first topic that I would like to talk about, which I have done in my previous videos as well, is to look at the role of technology in the cost structure of a firm, because technology is sort of like a double-edged sword, right? Whenever you try to adopt a new technology, you probably are going to be required to buy new machines, which are going to be costly, by the way. But over time, those technologies can really pay for themselves, so to speak, which means that most of the times these technological improvement in your production process might be helpful in the long run towards minimizing your cost, right? So examples are plenty out there. So we have seen examples of computerization of production process that might increase cost in the short run, but over the long period of time can lead to a significant reduction in the cost structure of the production process. And there are a lot of examples that you can find. I have sort of highlighted 3 examples here. I like the Chevron example very much. So Chevron is basically an oil exploring company, and back in the old days, most of the oil exploration is to be based on very primitive sort of seismographic technology, where you would basically scan the areas that are suitable for oil exploration, and most of the times that the data you would get would be inaccurate or not precisely accurate as you want it to be. So what happened was that in the early 90s, there was a lot of improvement in technology, specifically in the 3D modeling, technology that the computers can now carry out. I actually have seen some of these 3D modeling being actually created by some of my students when I was to teach at when I was to teach in the Middle East. So with this 3D modeling capable computer, what you can do, you can simulate the topographical sort of area of a region, and you can use statistical technique to figure out the probability of finding oil in certain sectors of that 3D region. And this actually would significantly reduce your exploration cost, and exploration cost is part of the production cost. Marsec, this is basically a pharmaceutical company, and they basically use a lot of semiconductor based equipments. And what happens is that there is a new thing called AI platform, where the companies no longer need to carry out double blind tests and carry out numerous experimentation on certain subjects. They can conduct smaller number of experiments, and then they can replicate those results. So these are all examples of technology that can significantly reduce time, exploration cost, setup cost, cost of backfiring of investment decisions. So they all together, if you want to think of them, are instrumental in reducing cost of production. So technology is very important. The next concept that I want to talk about is this idea of mass production. So mass production is an idea that I have talked about in previous videos. Mass production is a process in which you produce a lot of output at the same time, all at once. Okay, and the classic example of a mass production is the utilization of the assembly line, which Ford popularized in the 1920s. And the beauty of mass production is that there can be specialization of your labor force, where you basically allocate one person towards conducting one specific activity. So in an assembly line, each worker does just one job, and that's where, and because of this specialization, labor hours go down. A worker becomes more productive. So when a worker becomes more productive, that automatically reduces the cost of production. So mass production under an assembly line can reduce the utility cost, because within a small time, a large quantity of outputs are being produced. So that obviously reduces the so-called overhead cost for our producers. So these are all good examples of mass production. Do managers regularly look for mass production techniques? The answer is yes, they do. My favorite example is a comparison between Airbus and Boeing. We all know what Boeing is. Airbus is a European company that is very similar to Boeing in terms of their specialization, in terms of their production. So they both make planes. So even 20 years ago, Boeing used to build their flagship plane 747 to order, one at a time, and it used to be very time consuming. So between the production of two planes, there might be a huge gap when the machines in the production plant are completely sitting idle, but you are still paying for the utility cost, you are still keeping your workers. So production that was done to order was clearly inefficient. So in 1994, Airbus came to the picture, and from the beginning, they were using the mass production technology, where they were using assembly line kind of technology to produce a lot of goods at the same time. So Boeing immediately started experiencing lower cost. Boeing's planes are much lower priced than the Boeing's. Airbus's planes are much lower priced than Boeing's planes, and Boeing lost significant market share in the 2000s. So a couple of years ago, Boeing realized their problem, their mistake in their managerial strategy, and they have adopted mass production technology, and they are now slowly becoming a profitable company. So So the point that I want to make sure that we all understand is that mass production can lead to reduction in cost, and that mass production effect can be embodied in the production process in many ways, specialization being one of them. The next topic I think is very interesting. This concept is called the economies of scope. Now, economics of scope is basically sort of like a managerial decision where you decide to produce 2 or more products jointly rather than producing them separately. You produce these goods jointly rather than separately. Why? Because probably they share same kinds of inputs, probably they require same kind of labor force, probably the production plant requires same kind of calibration. Now, if there are goods like that, which when produced together will cost less than if they are produced separately, we will have something called economics of scope. My favorite example is Hershey. I probably am not spelling the name of the chocolate company properly. I apologize. So Hershey, basically have their production plant where they produce chocolates, they produce peanut butter products, and sometimes they also produce products that has both chocolate and peanut butter. And that is a classic example of economics of scope. Again, the reason why economics of scope is discussed in a managerial economics course is that a lot of evidence suggests that economic scope reduces the cost of production. Now, I'm going to look at some examples of economics of scope, and some of these examples might surprise you. So imagine that there is a bank that is providing unsecured consumer loans and also property secured mortgage loans. So unsecured consumer loans could be like issuing a credit card. That's actually a loan to the consumer. There might be more specialized unsecured loans like a car loan, personal expenditure loan, and property secured mortgage loans are something that we are all familiar with. Now, if a firm offers both of these kind of services, they might be able to reduce their overhead cost, because these origination of these loans will require same kind of vetting process, same kind of appraiser that is going to appraise your credit worthiness and things like that. So by offering 2 services within the same institution, they basically reduce the cost of producing both of them. So this is a classic example of economics of scope. Some production process requires specialized labor or specialized computer and telecommunication technology. And once you adopt that technology, you can use that technology to do so many different things. Okay, a classic example of that is, a company called ByteDance. I'm not sure whether you know this. ByteDance is a Chinese company, and they basically have a whole set of subsidiaries that offer products from credit card to basically allow you to play game online. So ByteDance actually has a super app where all of these services are being provided within one app. So this is a big deal, right? So this company could have provided all these services, all of these services, everything from buying internet services to paying utility bills to applying for a loan to buy airtime to play video games online. They could offer all these services separately, but by offering them at the same time, they reduce the cost of production. There is another point that I want to make in this discussion. So notice in these examples, there are also spillover effects between the various segments that ByteDance is serving, or a bank that provides alternative credit plans, right? Notice that the people who come for an unsecured loan are also good candidates for applying for property based mortgage loans, right? Does it make sense? If Binance offers somebody to pay utility bills or their bank bills, or Binance allows them to buy cryptocurrency, these same customers might be also interested in using their gaming platform. Now this idea has been appropriately exploited by a lot of companies. One company that comes to my mind is a financial institution called SoFi. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the name. It's actually a financial institution. So SoFi is trying to replicate the Binance kind of experiment. So they are offering everything from secured credit, unsecured credit, sort of like a wallet where you can buy cryptocurrency, sort of like a brokerage account where you can buy stock. So all these different services being offered within the same platform that SoFi has, and this is an example of economies of scope as well. The bottom line of economies of scope is that if a firm can indeed achieve economies of scope, it will lead to a reduction in the cost of their production. My final discussion today will be about discussing this idea of survivor technique. So survivor technique is an idea that originated in engineering, where engineers try to figure out the life cycle of a road or some kind of infrastructure. And they basically estimate the survival rate of a road or an infrastructure in case there is basically a natural disaster like a tornado. So there are sophisticated ways of estimating that. So the similar idea is also used in economics, where we use survivor technique to examine what size of firms are successful and what kinds of firms, what sizes of firms are basically declining. This is a critical information because the size of the firm is going to be very important when we try to reduce the cost of production. We already learned that in the previous video, where you saw that over time, if you have economies of scale, if you are producing a lot of output, there is a chance that your cost of production might go down. The real problem in real life is that sometimes as you are producing more, your cost of production might actually go up. We don't really know, right? GM is a classic example, right? For a long time, GM was expanding their production base. They were producing more cars, but their costs were not going down. They were actually going up. So we need to therefore figure out what size of a firm would be ideal for the business in question, and the easiest and the most convenient or most logical way of finding that optimal size is to identify firms that are successful. So it is done in 2 steps. Identify the firms that are successful and then identify the size of their operation. After you identify the size of their operation, you are going to replicate their success by replicating the size of operation that these successful firms are sort of using in their production process. So this has deep economic interpretation. The rationale behind this process is that we know that our intense market competition will eliminate firms of inefficient size. So the only firms that are going to thrive are firms with optimal production plant size. So why are we talking about production plant? Because the size of your operation has an outsized effect on the cost of production. If you can find the right size of your production plant, you might also be able to minimize your cost of production. Therefore, the survivor technique could be another additional sort of strategy that a manager can adopt if the manager wants to maximize production and minimize cost at the same time. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.